You like dragons? Imagine dragging these nuts across your forehead.
Welcome to the motherfucking lady. We're covering today's top boxing news.
Okay, we'll start with this. In Oscar De La Hoya's latest installment of Clapback Thursday, he ripped Zuffa boxing debut, saying, "The Ring magazine brand is officially fake news. It's owned by Turkey, who's partnered with Zuffa, whose correspondence is officially spent the week sucking up to Zuffa. They are all completely biased." Max Kellerman.
Oh, he mentioned Turkey by name. I take it he doesn't want to preserve that relationship.
It's too bad because he's the one that needs it.
Max Kellerman. His commentary was cringeworthy. You can hear a pin drop in that arena. There was zero vibe or excitement. Nobody wants to watch club show boxing at the Apex with influencers who give two shits about boxing.
Speaking of atmosphere, what was the atmosphere for your last show against Curiel versus Penthen?
Oscar continued, "There's a reason why those fighters were passed over by the top promoters." He's talking about the fighters that Zuffa has picked up. Oscar De La Hoya, in these Clapback Thursday installments, has become the king of throwing stones in a glass house. Anything he says about anybody else in the industry can be turned around on him, because when you talk about fighters being passed over by top promoters, your own fighters want to pass you over. Your flagship fighters in Ryan Garcia and Virgil Ortiz, both of which hate it there and want to leave.
And what about the fighters that already did, like Jaime Munguia, Senicia Estrada, Canelo Alvarez more than 5 years ago, which you never recovered from?
Oscar, saying all this stuff about all these people, he's got no situational awareness. Is it that he's been humiliated so many times over so many years, publicly, he can't read the room? Or that with every Clapback installment he uploads to his social media, as he's got mounting problems with his promotion,
He's becoming more unhinged.
your house needs sorting, that you don't need to be worried about what's going on at anybody else's. Even if Zuffa Boxing's debut was less than spectacular, they have time to build. They have a 7-year deal with Paramount and a war chest that's a lot bigger than yours. A lot more money behind their promotion than you have behind yours.
Never mind their debut show, because their second show, I would say, is not only better than their first, but it's better than your last.
They've got Rayo Valenzuela, Sergey Boachuk, and Alexander Vozdik, all of which are more memorable than anybody who fought on your last show.
You're saying that their shows are small scale, and they feel like club shows, but at times, Oscar, Golden Boy's shows feel like club shows.
He said the Ring magazine brand is officially fake news because it's owned by Turkey. Hey, remind me, who sold it to him?
Why don't you jog my memory, Oscar?
I can remember a few years ago, when Oscar De La Hoya still had a stake in Ring magazine, he put Ronda Rousey on the cover. At this time, there were any number of women boxers that he could have put on that cover to help promote women's boxing, to spearhead that effort. He didn't do that. He instead put an MMA fighter on there.
Why?
I don't know, but I can guess. It could be because at that time, Ronda had peaked, she was at the height of her popularity, and people were saying things like, she could beat up Floyd Mayweather. We all know that Oscar's had an axe to grind with Floyd for a good number of years, because he never gave him his rematch.
So maybe that's why he put Ronda on the cover, because at that time people were
She was popular.
saying she would beat Floyd? I'm just guessing.
Another instance of where Oscar's petty behavior serves no other purpose than making him look like a fool.
Because that's what he looks like, smiling through his teeth in his videos when, buddy, you've got your own problems. You don't need to worry about Zuffa. They're fine. Their future's secure. But is yours?
In men's heavyweight news, Tyson Fury Netflix fight sparks rumors of power struggle. The announcement of the Tyson Fury comeback fight against Arslanbek Makhmudov has sparked a fresh debate behind the scenes of the boxing industry, with questions emerging over promoter relationships, control of major events, and the growing influence of Ring Magazine and Netflix in the sport's biggest fights. Fury's return, which will air on Netflix under the Ring Magazine banner, comes at a time when promotional lines appear increasingly blurred. While Queensberry Promotions have long been synonymous with the Gypsy King's career, their involvement in this latest fight announcement has so far been minimal, limited to a single social media post from Frank Warren stating that he is backing the comeback of Tyson Fury. The lack of visible joint promotion has fueled speculation that there may be tension behind the scenes, particularly following recent comments made by Matchroom Boxing chairman Eddie Hearn. When asked directly about the situation, speaking to Seconds Out, Hearn was questioned on rumors suggesting a potential fallout between Turki El Sheikh and Frank Warren, and whether that had opened the door for Matchroom to promote Ring Magazine shows instead. Hearn was quick to distance himself from the suggestion, responding, "I'm not aware of any issues. It's nothing to do with us."
What do you think could cause a rift between Turki and Frank? It could be how much cooperation Turki expects to get from Frank and how much access Frank gives him to his stable. You can tell that Turki's a guy, he's not used to people telling him no.
He's used to getting what he wants. So what if what he wants is fighters that you've got under contract for use on his shows? How many times are you supposed to allow that when you would like to use those fighters on your own shows?
These fighters that you have under contract.
The article continues, when the same topic was raised earlier by Ariel Helwani, Hearn offered a more expansive response, highlighting Matchroom's growing operational role across multiple Riyadh season and Ring Magazine events. No, I think that, look, Turki is always going to support the world and the ecosystem of boxing. Quite frankly, Hearn said, when he was working with Queensberry a lot, we were kind of out. We came in, we did a fight with AJ, we've got a very close relationship with him in Riyadh across a multitude of sports. We did the darts, we did the snooker, we're promoting the event this weekend on behalf of Ring Magazine. We did Eubank versus Ben, but it's because that works for Turki. He knows we've got a fantastic operational team, we've done a great job, MSG is going to be sold out, but it's still his show.
I remember 2 years ago when Turki first enters into the boxing space and he uses Frank Warren as the point man for his Riyadh season events. I found that surprising since Eddie Hearn is a more international promoter than Frank and better suited for the role.
Did Turki El Sheikh not realize that at the time but became aware of it over time? And on that predication, is he now using Eddie to fulfill that role? And is Frank raw about that?
Well, he might be. That and Turki insists on using what are Frank's fighters for his shows.
Hearn's comments have taken on added significance following today's confirmation of Fury vs. Makhmudov, a fight announced under Ring Magazine branding with Netflix distribution, yet without the usual promotional presence from Queensberry Promotions. Frank Warren addressed the situation during an appearance on Talk Sport, where he was asked about his relationship with Tyson Fury and the circumstances surrounding the comeback. Warren made it clear that Fury's opponent choice was deliberate, saying it's a tough fight for him. He said he doesn't want to fight any YouTubers. When pressed on Queensberry's involvement in the event, Warren added, "That's out of my hands as such. Nothing to do with me, that. That was done with the Ring Magazine people." Those comments have only added to the sense that the promotional landscape around Fury's return is shifting, with Ring Magazine now acting as the central organizing brand, Netflix providing global distribution, Matchroom heavily involved operationally in recent Ring-led events, and Queensberry seemingly on the periphery. Questions are naturally being asked about how future mega fights will be structured and who truly controls them. While no party has publicly acknowledged any dispute, the optics surrounding Fury's comeback suggest a new power dynamic may be forming at the top of boxing, one where traditional promoter alliances are no longer guaranteed and major stars may operate increasingly outside the structures that once defined their careers.
What force could be strong enough to blur the political boundary lines that defined these fighters as alliances?
Money! It all boils down to money.
And who's got more of it? Promoter signs a fighter, promotes that fighter, does shows for that fighter. It's in the hopes that they can then make the money back and then some. Turki's got so much of it, provides so much of it, that you can skip that step.
Assuming that Tyson Fury is still contracted to Queensberry, and he's still a Queensberry fighter, that might mean that Frank Warren gets a commission from Turkey using him, a slice out of Tyson Fury's fight purse.
Pure profit.
You're getting something out of this without having to kick out any of your own money from your own budget for your own promotion. Though if that's true, why would this be a power struggle? Sounds like a square deal.
Because in that situation, Frank wouldn't be the one in charge. His input would be minimal. They're doing this all on their own.
The amount of money that Turkey is regularly kicking out for these shows, how could anybody say no? And look at the platform that he's providing, a bigger one than you can. Netflix is many times bigger than DAZN. I think that goes without saying.
I've been saying that while DAZN is a good platform for combat sports, or at least it has been, it can only advertise its content to already existing subscribers. For somebody that doesn't have DAZN, they're not gonna know what the hell's going on.
Fury versus Makhmudov on DAZN would have been a good little fight, a solid little comeback fight on the platform, but on Netflix, it becomes something else. It becomes a global event. It's much bigger now.
Seems like common sense, but then what is the power struggle?
That Turkey LL Sheik in this situation has all the power, all the say-so. You're outranked, outflanked, outfought, and outbought. And all you can do is tag along for the ride. For somebody like Frank, who's been in this industry for so many years, it's gonna feel like they're cutting your balls off. That's where it becomes a power struggle. He hasn't protested anything openly, but there does seem to be something there, and Fury...
Don't get too attached to the idea that Tyson Fury is loyal to Frank Warren. So many people categorize him as Frank Warren's boy, but before he was with Frank, he was Mick Hennessy's boy.
He was with Mick, and I remember that Mick Hennessy, the veteran promoter, said Tyson Fury, he broke his heart. He pairs up with Frank, and people forgot all about Mick and his contribution to the early goings of Fury's career.
Frank didn't come into it until Fury came out of retirement the first time.
All I'm telling you is Tyson Fury is loyal to whoever will pay him the most. And a lot of the fighters, a lot of the managers, the boxing people, this is how they operate. I'm not saying it's right. I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm just saying that's the way it is. And in this situation...
That's Turkey.
As a boxing fan, I'm not complaining either, because if they would have did Fury versus Makhmudov on DAZN, they likely would have built that as a pay-per-view. They had the audacity to build Italma versus White as a pay-per-view, Wortley versus Parker as a pay-per-view, whereas Netflix, they don't do that.
But if history is any indicator of things to come, Netflix has done events that are many times bigger than anything on DAZN, and when they did them, they made them available to all their existing subscribers. They didn't hide them behind a paywall, so they likely won't hide Fury versus Makhmudov behind a paywall, and that's good for me and you. That's good for us.
Makes boxing affordable, gives it back to the people. More boxing on Netflix is good for all of us, so I'm not complaining, even if that means they gotta step on Frank's toes.
But what is probably most interesting to me is that all those 5 cards that Netflix has put on, every single one of them involves a DAZN fighter. Katie Taylor on the first one, right? Paul Tyson. They had to get permission from DAZN to have her on there, and DAZN gets paid, but that's their biggest female draw. Katie Taylor is the face of women's boxing in many people's eyes, and certainly of DAZN's boxing. Second card, Katie Taylor versus Amanda Serrano. They had to do the same thing. Third card. Okay, sorry. I'm talking about 4 out of the 5. Sorry, not Crawford Canelo. AJ. And this time, Tyson Fury. And so DAZN's subscribers and even their promoters, this is a Queensberry fighter. Tyson Fury is a Queensberry fighter. DAZN is openly willing to get paid to have their fighters fight on different platforms. And so are they telling us by doing this, I'm just hypothesizing here, but are they telling us by doing this that it's more beneficial to them to get the payday from Netflix than to have these fights on their platform and hope for X amount of subs, X amount of pay-per-view buys, whatever the case may be? Are they getting paid more to just have their fighters fight elsewhere? They have deals with these promoters. As a result of those deals, those fighters should be fighting on DAZN. And the biggest names who are attached to those promoters, Taylor, AJ, Taylor again, Tyson Fury, are not fighting on the platform. I find that to be fascinating and not something that is common, not something that we've seen Surely not in this era. Like you'll recall Lewis Tyson back in the day. Tyson was a Showtime fighter. Lewis was an HBO fighter. They had to come together. They both had to broadcast it. That was the big stumbling block. That was the big deal. That's not happening here. This is a Netflix exclusive. So I feel like this is big.
An interesting and insightful question posed by Ariel Helwani that I actually already answered in a previous video. At this point, is it more beneficial for DAZN to outsource their flagship fighters to a bigger promotion for a nice commission? The short answer is yes, so we don't have to go over that again here. But separately, there is something else to address. That if Tyson Fury's comeback fight is not going to be on the DAZN platform, will Anthony's comeback fight be on the DAZN platform? And what about Canelo and the fight that he plans on having in September? Is that going to be on DAZN or is it going to be on Netflix, like his last fight? Because if it is, while DAZN is getting compensation for this, what are the subscribers to DAZN getting for it? What compensation are they getting? DAZN just launched what's supposed to be their ultimate tier, and I feel sorry for anybody who already signed up to it, because you may have signed up to it thinking you were going to get Fury fights and AJ fights and Canelo fights. Well now, what if you don't? What are you getting?
It's $449 a month, 2 times as much as the regular annual subscription in DAZN, already being on the pricier end of the spectrum for a streaming platform. What are you getting for your money?
DAZN, even without the ultimate tier, is already more expensive than a Paramount Plus subscription or a Netflix subscription. The sales pitch for the ultimate tier that cost 2 times as much as the annual was that you would get a minimum of 12 pay-per-views annually if you sign on, all part of the sub.
But when you think about it, you're just doing more pay-per-views, essentially charging more for your content, than saying if you sign up to this, it saves you money.
No.
And all it really is you're charging more money. You're charging more money more often for more of your content.
You're not saving us nothing.
I'd be weary if I were any of you out there signing up to DAZN's Ultimate Tier. What are you actually getting for your hard-earned dollars?
Ariel Helwani speculated that the big Joshua versus Fury showdown may end up on Netflix, not DAZN, and I could totally see that happening because borrowing Anthony was a big deal. That was a big move, an expensive one, but they did it. They worked it out.
Netflix and DAZN.
I don't need to tell you that Anthony Joshua versus Tyson Fury on Netflix is many times bigger than it would be on DAZN, seen by that many more people. It's already a big fight, a big pay-per-view all on its own. If you make it that much more accessible to all of Netflix's subs,
Get it.
that they've already borrowed Anthony and they're now borrowing Fury, makes that a distinct possibility, though of course, it would be at the expense of the DAZN subscribers who signed on, thinking they were going to get that fight as part of the sub. If they're not, then why sub?
You don't need it to see them fight.
Trying times ahead, the landscape has become a lot more competitive and challenging for the existing game in town. Not just the PBC and Top Rank, not just Golden Boy, but DAZN as a platform.
Because you now have Paramount Plus to compete with on a regular basis, and presumably Netflix, if they take a more active role in showing boxing matches throughout the calendar year, you can't compete with them. The scale, size, audience, or the pricing.
You're outgunned. So to those existing DAZN subscribers, now you need to start wondering, what are you actually getting for your money, and is it worth it?